Alright, what is up YouTube? Today I'm riding the 2023 GSX250R and it's a beginner bike. It's a 250cc beginner bike. So we're trying it out today. I like to compare all the beginner bikes between all the brands, but jumping on this bike here, immediately I can feel it feels like a sport bike. It really does. You are sitting forward. You're actually pitched forward quite a bit. So you're not sitting straight up and down like other beginner bikes. So it does have a little bit more sporty of a seating position than some of the other beginner bikes out there. Pretty quiet, actually very quiet. I can barely hear it sitting with all these bikes here. I can barely hear the exhaust, so it is fairly quiet. We're gonna try and keep up with all these other sport bikes, but I don't know how possible that's going to be. You can see here I'm flat footing on both sides, so the seating height is pretty low. Taking off from a stop is fairly easy. The clutch lets out nice and smoothly. Alright, that's all the way out. I had her pinned there, so not the quickest bike. I'm just gonna say that right off the bat. I think this bike has about 25 horsepower and about 17-18 pound-feet of torque, so it is a lot lower on the spectrum than some of the other beginner bikes from Kawasaki, KTM for example. So it does have a lot less power than some of the other beginner bikes on the market, but the other beginner bikes are also offering 400, 390cc. For example, the Kawasaki Ninja 400 and the KTM 390 Duke. So those are the two bikes I'm kind of comparing this to, but I think this would compare more closely to the KTM 200 Duke instead of the 390. The 390 and the Ninja 400 are going to be in another class of bikes here. So you don't have to give it a ton of throttle to take off. This clutch is nice and smooth and the friction zone feels really easy. So this bike does rev up to about 10,000 RPM. So you do have to pretty much rev it out all the way. And let's see, I mean, we're only going 40 right now. I'm in fourth gear at 6,000 RPM. If I roll on, yeah, there's not much there, honestly. You barely feel the pull, the acceleration pull. Now in terms of braking, this bike does have ABS. I think all motorcycles ever should have ABS. That's kind of a newer thing happening. But low speeds here, the throttle's very smooth, considering it also doesn't have a ton of power. So very easy to manage at low speeds, very easy to balance as well. So it's a light bike, it's right around... Alright, here we go. I'm revving it all the way out and we barely hit 50. So definitely not what I would call quick or fast in any sense of the word. Now what I was saying though is it feels pretty light. It feels like you can definitely flick it over pretty easily. It feels like you can turn it. It feels pretty easy going around the corner because of that. Now this bike does have 6 gears. So right now we're in 6th gear. I'm rolling on the throttle. It's picking up okay. I think this is probably comparable to the Ninja 250 I had back in the day, back in 2007. Well, it was the 2007, but I had it back in 2010. But I think the power feels close to that. You really have to rev this bike out to get it going anywhere. Now, gear shifting is nice. I really like the gear shifting on here. It's very direct. It gives you such a satisfying clunk with the gear shifter. It just lets you know you're in gear. I really like that. Now, you're obviously not going to be able to keep up with the high-powered sport bikes like we see here, the GSX-R600, GSX-R750. I think even the SV650 would walk away from this easily. I don't know if this will even be able to keep up with the Ninja 400 or the KTM 390. I was pretty impressed with those bikes. This one is obviously lower CCs. Here's my problem. When you have a bike that's $5,000 like this bike here, and you have a bike that's $5,000 with the KTM or the Kawasaki Ninja, you get double the horsepower on those bikes. So I really don't understand why anyone would pick this bike over those bikes. And like, the power's all right for a beginner, but it's pretty lethargic. I feel like you would get tired of the power in 3 months, 6 months of riding. Now it does feel good going down the road though. It feels stable. I really like the seating position. I like that they made it a little bit more aggressive than some of the other beginner bikes. So get on the brakes here, pretty good. I like having ABS. Let's go around this corner here. Feels great going around the corner, very easy to turn. All right, I got it pinned. I got it pinned. Oh, the wind's hitting me now. I got her pinned. I'm all the way down. All right, so that was a little bit of a struggle trying to get up to speed here on the freeway. And here we go. I'm trying to maintain with the group here. So we're in 6th gear doing 66 miles an hour, 65, and we're at 8,000 RPM. So this bike doesn't have a ton of top end. You know, above 65, it's not going to have much top end at all. Let's see, can I tuck on here? Yeah, I can tuck a little bit. Some bikes, it's just so awkward to tuck. That helps with the acceleration and the speed. But you can see I'm getting up to 80 miles an hour, and the bike is honestly struggling to keep that speed. I'm really revving it out. So it does really feel good turning. Like, it feels so stable and planted through the turns. It feels like it just wants to lean over. So I like that aspect. So I've got it pinned all the way. It's really struggling. So like, we're at 9,000 RPM. Going 75, 70-ish, and I'm really close to redline in 6th gear, so there's not much past this. Let's see, yeah, I mean, it feels okay. Now I really like the looks of this bike. They made it look like a sport bike. A lot of beginner bikes back in my day did not look like sport bikes. They looked like ancient. I really just don't like the retro sport bike look, sorry, but these ones they're making these days look really good. And the Gixxer, the GSX250R, this bike here looks really good. It looks like a sport bike. So you can fool people with your looks, but when it comes time to ride the power, you're not going to have much there. Although I think it does fine around town. Like, you could definitely make it work around town. Yeah, I think it's very easy to ride, very easy to shift. I really like how it shifts. I like all the controls. It has a nice little screen there. Nothing fancy, very basic bike. The thing I like most about it is how it shifts. The shifts are just so satisfying and direct, but overall just a very easy bike to ride. My problem is with the power. I really think it's lethargic for what you're spending your money on. $5,000 here. I mean, you can get a Ninja 400s for $5,500. You can get a KTM Duke 390 for right around there as well. Those bikes will blow this bike away in speed and power and just fun, the fun factor. I think this bike is missing a little bit of the fun factor. I think it needs a little bit more horsepower to be competitive. So I wanted to try out this bike because I've ridden the other beginner bikes and I want to see how this compares. If you're really brand loyal, then yeah, I'd go for the Suzuki, I guess, but there's better options out on the market. So I'm really being hard on this bike in terms of my opinion. It's just because the price they're asking for this does not warrant what they offer you on this bike. Now, if you don't have access to the Ninja 400 or KTM for any reason, then sure, this is a good alternative. You want a nice beginner bike, a nice, easy, safe, slow beginner bike? Sure, this is it right here. But I probably wouldn't recommend this to, you know, anyone that's looking to really get a beginner bike and keep it for longer than 3 months to 6 months. But overall, I still had fun. I just don't really like it. I just wouldn't ever consider this bike. No offense to anyone that has it, but overall, not enough power for what you are paying. That's really my gripe with it, my takeaway.